we've also talked about how long will it take to create the balance. And then today in Børsen, which is, a leading business media here in Denmark, there was an article where they reported that Brian Mikkelsen, who's the head of Danish industry, and he used to be the Minister of Commerce, said that it was moving slow in Denmark. And if it doesn't pick up, he thinks that political action will happen in regards to quotas for diversity in management and boards. So how fast do actually things need to move in order for us to avoid, these kind of regulations? Tina, do you want to take it first?
I can. I just watched back the video and I was talking a lot, so I would like to leave some time to the others to answer to. But in short, I think the EU is pushing a lot on this agenda. Also, the pay gap, equal pay, and so on, that will come very soon too. So I actually think just that Brian Mikkelsen and also the other large organization, both Dansk Erhverv and Dansk Industri, what they're pushing for now makes a huge difference, and the politicians are listening to them and their members. So I do think hopefully things are going to accelerate now. How fast it should go? Well, ideally much faster, but there's certainly a momentum now going on.
Yeah, and I think, Signe, if you want to continue, but if we look at a question that Irene has posed, is she's worried that if we do have something such as quotas, that will there be some mediocrity or into it? Because there's a lot of women who have the ability to be leaders. So how then are we forcing the hands to create the change, and how do we keep up the level?
It's an incredible, delicate subject because there's so many things. One is, do we have the right talent pool to choose from? So you can say that you want to have quotas and pick 50% female male leaders, but you also want the right people to be leaders or have those positions. And we do it actually where I work right now, aim for having these quotas, or at least look into to having a 50% in all leadership or management levels. And I don't know if I completely support it. I think it's important if you have a company where you only have male leaders or managers, because then you kind of need to change the balance, as you also talked about. But it is a very delicate subject. So my personal view on it is that it's more important, or as important, to have some education within it. I was talking a bit about the after-schooling part of it. Like, it doesn't only come to tech, but it could also come to leadership. Like, if you want more people to have the right talents to become a leader, then you actually need to develop them in that direction. And that can be by schooling in some sorts, or a grooming, you can call that, again, talking back to the whole mentors and role models, but really create a kind of environment where you can give people the right tools to become really good leaders, both male, female, or having a different cultural background, like everything. And I see that in a lot of companies and corporations, that they're actually looking into creating their own talent pools, where they give these tools and they groom people who wants this and who have aspirations to become leaders. So they have the right talents to pick from.
Yeah. I agree. It's interesting, actually. Claire, you said something about, how men are so good at supporting each other, and how women should be better at that. And I wonder if you want to talk a little bit more about that, because, your organization, Women in Shipping, has a lot of social events as well. And I'm looking at, is there more that we can do, such as making sure when you're a manager that you have a balance, in your group as well? Or what do you think are some things that we can do?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things we can do. But I mean, first of all, for shipping, I just think that the pool of applicants is too small, and we need to increase that first of all in order to get more women in and to have more to choose from. Because I heard a lot of the managers complain that they really want women, but they simply don't have enough applicants. So what we really try to promote is that women should support each other and really recommend other women to apply for the industry, but also try to push women to support each other and recommend women in the industry for jobs internally in their company. If they know that there's a manager position opening up, maybe recommend a woman instead of just not saying anything, because men are really super good at that, recommending each other and putting each other up the corporate ladder, and we really should be better at that.
Yeah, I agree. And it looks like we have a question over here from Ulla, who's asking what kind of education and grooming, could we offer? And I think it would be interesting to talk a little bit more about after schooling, because Signe, you mentioned that, and maybe that those two are kind of related. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it was just a thought that I had looking into this discussions. But the thing is that a lot of women that I know, at least, who are in their mid-30s, they took one education, and here in Denmark, it's for free to take an education, but then you have to pay if you want to do something else afterwards. So a lot of people kind of stick into what they have as a craftsmanship, so to call it. And then you can maybe deviate a bit during your career, but it's pretty much set. But a lot of women that I know actually want to look more into other fields. It could be more technical positions or more IT areas. And it's just difficult for them, because then they need a different kind of background. And you can do that in your spare time, but either you have to pay or you have to seek out some courses that maybe are not a good fit for you and your job. So one thing when I was looking into the after schooling is that if a company want to have a bigger talent pool within a certain field, that could be leadership, that could be tech, IT, or something else, then they should also create a forum or a place where they could after school people who want to pursue a career within that field, but who needs the right tools, again, coming back to the whole tools thing. And I see that's something that could be looked further into, as well as there are, I know in Sweden at least, you can actually go to the university and take whatever course you would like to do besides your job. It's for free as well, so you can just jump in. It could be something that we could look into as well. Could you have some jump-in courses in DTU or ITU or somewhere else where you could learn to code, or you could learn UX, UI, or something else that a lot of companies are really looking into more talented people to work on. So that's an interesting field, at least.
Very nice. Yeah. I was also thinking about internships, which help students transition to see if they like something. Maybe there's some other after schooling internships or things like that. So,
Lora, can I come with a comment to what we're discussing here? Because that's actually where women have a bit of a double negative, so to speak, because as we discussed in the whole panel, where we see that there's this talent drain in the pipeline. Typically, a lot of women are actually not promoted in general on potential, which men typically are. They need to perform. So back to just linking back to what was discussed on quotas, it's also really important. And there's reports from other countries where you actually start inviting women in to leadership positions with more responsibility, even at board level. You start gaining experience, which of course is valuable in addition to your educational background. So I think that is really important. At the same time, though, there's a lot of people out there today that need to up-qualify. Literally all companies need to up-qualify their talent pool because of remote leadership, digitalization, all the things that are happening. And then on top of that, actually, it's a triple negative. There's also the whole thing about children, as we all know, where paternity, maternity leave is constantly discussed. And there are a lot of the big global companies are looking at sort of returnship, as it's called. Like, how can you actually get these talents back? Typically, after women have had 2 or 3 kids, 5, 10 years sometimes pass, but they're still brilliant lawyers or bankers or whatever. And whatever they didn't learn 10 years before when they were working or when they did their degree is actually not very different to men and women who kept working, because the exponential growth of tech and innovation is going so fast anyway. I mean, Corona, no one saw coming. So that up qualification everybody needs. So companies are actually looking at doing returnship program. It can be like a crash course. It can be, whatever. In some of these skills, even sustainability is something that everybody needs to look into now. And potentially companies could even go together and say, okay, we'll run this type of quick fast track education and then offer, as you said, some internships and actually take them in as project managers or something where they would be brilliant because they're well educated already. So there's a lot of potential in these kind of things.
Okay. Actually, maybe I would like you to continue if you wouldn't mind. Looks like Soren has asked a question about if there's some best practices in tech companies, how you can measure this. And I wonder if maybe we can look at other industries across that you've worked with, Tina. And, oh, I'm in the dark here now. So, what is the right quota? How many should we have in the board? Which should we have in the management so people know how to, measure how they're doing?
And this is such an interesting question because I hear, even in the government, we have in our law that 60-40, I just discussed this with someone the other day regarding policies, that 60-40 is considered equal and balanced leadership, whereas, others would argue 50-50 because half the world population are women, right? And certainly in this country and many others, it's more than half of the students coming out that are actually with a degree that are women. So from that point of view, you can say that, there are different industries that are struggling a little bit more than others. But again, you have the rising stars everywhere. So SAP, for example, that tech company, they have the 50-50 goal. And they are pushing hard on all sorts of measures, and they are accountable at top leadership level. It's in their KPIs and so on. Other companies have sort of also hit the mark. IKEA are extremely diverse. They also have the 50-50 mark in their leadership. Coca-Cola is globally known. Unilever, Procter & Gamble. There's a lot of companies out there beyond tech that are quite successful. And I know, of course, a lot of the big shipping companies, Maersk and so on, are working very hard on it too. Sometimes it can take longer to actually move the needle, but I think it's so important that it's raised, that the data is there, that it's followed up, and that people are made accountable. And there's a reward system also at all leadership levels that actually measures what you're doing and gives you a reward for setting a diverse team. Because in the end of the day, even though it's International Women's Day, we have to remember this is about diversity of thought. You need to have that diverse management team to make better decisions. And the skilled women are out there. So yes, let's get them to the table.
Yeah, I think it's so Soren has a follow-up question here about startups who have minimal funding and, maybe there's not room for the education. But I remember a couple of weeks ago, I think it was Burson also, who put out an article that showed 100 women that were prepared and ready to go onto boards. Did any of you see that article also? So I don't know. I know, Tina, you're a very proponent of education, and there's certainly a lot of people who do need to be upskilled, right? But there's also people that are out there that are available, and maybe you need to look outside of your industry. So Claire, what do you think as far as, you've been in the bunkering industry for a while now, and do you see there's upward mobility there? Is there education, happening there to help you rise up in that industry, or will you need to, move outside of your company in order to do that?
I don't know really. It's gonna be interesting to see in the next couple of years how fast they move. I think it's a very old industry and also set in their ways. But I think it's going to be interesting now because WIS and Danish Shipping are going to do a report on where are the women in shipping now, where is the problems, and so on. So we don't really have firm numbers for our industry yet. We don't really have enough data to look into it. So I think that's going to be great to have that in order to tackle the problems and hopefully move these problems along faster and really get women promoted.
Yeah, thank you. Tina, you offer education, but people also need to pay to be part of your diversity council. So do you have certain spots that could be for startups like, Soren was asking, that allows some kind of scholarship for, maybe smaller industries that can afford, intense. I really don't know how much yours cost, so I apologize for putting you on the spot.
No, but thanks. But ours are literally at master classes, so we are actually trying to prep as many female leaders that are out there with the big companies for C-suite. So we have sort of a specific focus. So we are flying in top professors. So hence it of course comes at a price. But I think, Son, to answer your question too, one thing you can do also to motivate the young women that you hopefully hire in startups that are tech fueled is also to have a cool advisory board. And there are actually, interestingly enough, and Signe knows all about this, in tech in Denmark, we have some amazing women out there. Marianne Dale and Abule from Microsoft. There's a lot out there. Dell has Anya. I mean, there's a lot. So maybe actually you could try to tie in a couple of these high-powered women in tech to be on an advisory board of startups. I know most of them are really supporting any kind of entrepreneurship, and hence linking maybe a couple of the younger people in your organization to them as mentors and so on. That's also actually really good hands-on knowledge. And then there are quite a few courses. I had my own daughter looking into also. She wanted to suddenly do programming, which of course we like to support her in. And I know there's quite a lot of courses also in the evenings out there one can take. But I hear what you're saying too, Signe, that in addition to we have our own academy with leadership programs, but also through the state, there are, of course, things you can do to like literally rebrand yourself, up qualify, learn new skills. And I think to remain relevant in the workplace, not just for women, but for all of us, is so important right now because things are moving so fast.
Yeah, I agree with Signe, and just to add on to Søren's question here, because I used to work for a startup when I was studying, and then I've just been working in large organizations since then. But on a personal level, working for a startup is actually an education in itself because you have so many hats. I mean, you don't have one role; you do a lot of things, and that's actually where you learn on the go. So I also remember the ones I was working for that they were very patient on me, like taking YouTubing my way actually more or less on a lot of the tasks that I had. Working on bigger companies, you're pretty much set in a role, in a box, and that can be super difficult to deviate from. It can be difficult to change once you're in a box. Where working in a startup or scale up, you can take on so many different projects and tasks. So yeah.
So thank you for that. I'm interested in delving a little bit more into work-life balance and an inclusive culture. And Tina, you talked about how leadership needs to be redefined. So how do we combine those so that there's, it's more inclusive for women and men and, the lifestyles that perhaps being a parent sometimes dictate?
I can give you again an example because, as you mentioned, and also in the questions, it's always good to bring in other industries. One shining example would be Tryg, the insurance company, where their CEO Morten Hyppe, he is very much himself into he's diving into the debate with all his employees. They bought off Alka and now also Codan, so it's really one of the largest insurance companies in the Nordics now. And he's been having a weekly blog where he's telling about his own life. And he's also saying, don't expect me to answer emails during the weekend. And I leave early on Friday to pick up my kids and so on. They also tend to promote when men and women are taking longer parental leave and so on. So I think, again, the tone from the top and things are changing. So again, back to the next generation, typically actually what young men and women want is exactly the same as some women with young kids or starting a family need. So I think gearing all our big companies, also the shipping industry, to be ready to attract the talents of the future is really important. So you need that work-life balance. You know that from Google and all the other big companies. Again, Signe, you probably know a lot about that. But what they're offering, they even go in and invest in employee startups, which they can do on the side. And some of them want to go off and climb Kilimanjaro, and I mean, there's so many things going on in people's lives today, and the whole co-creation. If you want to attract the best talents, which we all need to get into the sustainable green future and so on, also in shipping and in tech certainly, then you need to be able to provide some kind of flexible workspace that works for all of us. And typically, women are very often, you can see in research, sort of sandwiched between being more senior, having the experience that is necessary, and having young kids at the same time, and parents that are not well. So you have that double nursing kind of situation, which is really tough, while also having a senior leadership role.
Yeah. And you guys talked a little bit about mentorship and how important that is to have role models. And we've talked to also, Tina, you mentioned how you can have your mother and your father inspiring you, right? So there's a lot of different ways that, you know, we have inspiration. And Claire, I wonder from, you know, your point of view, because you have a lot of ambition, you're even going outside of your job, and same Signe with you, and helping with these organizations, Women in Shipping and Women in Tech. So maybe we can take a couple minutes to discuss, you know, your ambition and how can others, maybe what inspired you, maybe that will inspire some other people.
For my sake, I just think I just always been inspired by powerful women and women who really wanted to make a change and was ambitious, and then I saw a need. Definitely, we saw a need, Nela and I, who started this, that we didn't know other women, and we really wanted to help and to connect and to help each other up, because that's the way to go. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck where women has been stuck in our industry for decades. So in order to change that, we had to do something.
Yeah. And in the discussion, we talked a little bit how we're not going to do this alone, right? This is a journey that men and women are on together. So since we only have about 7 minutes left, maybe each of you can wrap up about, you know, what are a couple of tips that actions we can do today that will make a change for tomorrow? Signe, do you want to start?
Oh, that's a tough one to start.
I'm happy to start if you want, Signe. I have a quick one.
Yeah, no, but I will just quickly go back to what I said in the discussion earlier. Again, it's super important, if you are a big organization, really look into what are the role models that you already have. Interview them, really find out what's good about the organization as it is and what needs change. There's always room for improvement. Really look into why do we want to, which roles do we have that we want more diversity in, and then how can we kind of unwrap these roles to show what they're actually about, to increase the interest for them. Yeah, and coming back to the whole after schooling, like really looking into, can we do something to promote this kind of work, to give the right tools for a more diverse talent pool to choose from. And also just a quick thing when it comes up to what Tina just mentioned about maternity leave and paternity leave. Don't be afraid to make different tracks. A lot of women going on maternity leave actually wants to be kept in loop. They really want to still be engaged in what's going on. So don't be afraid of reaching out to them if they agree on that.
Thank you. Tina, you want to go?
No, again, I mean, we work with female talents all the time and role models and so on. And I really believe that women are supporting each other absolutely well. I've met so many wonderful, amazing women, and I believe that is happening a lot. Also, thanks to people like Nela and Claire and so on. I do think that we have to remember also on this International Women's Day that we're talking about inclusion. So we have to include the men. Statistically speaking, again, it's about 80-20 of men at the top, 80%. So if you're a young, ambitious woman out there, I mean, make sure also to seek out mentors in your company. Reach out to the men sitting there, because everybody now we're talking to, they even come to us and say, can you help us headhunt women? So they really want that diverse talent. I truly believe, especially here in Denmark, it's sort of a given. They just don't necessarily know how best to help or where to look. hence the quotas again, because if you have to look, you will, and you will find all the qualified women that are out there. So, and I also know that remaining within shipping again, Christian Ingerslev from Maersk Tankers on your stage, actually, Claire, made a brilliant point also, and advice to all the women that was listening at your event. Try to take a risk, find a project where you will be noticed, not necessarily by the CEO, but at least by your superiors. Make a mark, try something different, because actually they might want you to take that further, because there are so few women at the top. There are brilliant opportunities right now to come in and actually have the staying power to advance.
Yeah, and you mentioned Maersk Tankers, where ZeroNorth is a spin out of Maersk Tankers, and they've actually made a huge transformation, and had now they have 2 women in their management, where they had 0 a year ago. And he was on stage with Claire, and he said, "I'm going to make a change," and they did. So. And Claire, how about you? Because you are bringing men on stage for women in shipping, and are there other initiatives that you're doing to try and help the connection there?
Well, obviously we try to highlight all topics that women want to hear about and talk about. I think the wage gap, work-life equality, work-life balance, and so on is what women want to hear a lot about. I'm still fairly new into the industry. I've only been here for 5 years, so it's also limited what I can give advice to others. But what I've learned in the journey of founding WIS, what Maria Peider told her story from Apple Holding, and she just made it very clear that always be vocal about what you want, and be vocal about it to your manager, and never feel guilty. And yeah, it's super important to be vocal about it, because I think a lot of women tend to be afraid to say what they want, or afraid to go for something because they don't feel like they have the necessary skills. But if we got to play equal game with men, we just have to say it and go for it, I think.
Yeah, and I think what she also had a quote that really inspired me, which was like, if you're given a seat on the rocket ship, don't ask which seat, right?
Yeah, just take it. Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Well, I just wanted to thank you all so much. Here. Okay, but anyway, I wanted to thank you all so much for joining me on this, International Women's Day and this panel. And I hope we continue this conversation, and we support each other, and we continue to learn, how we create a balance, and how do we learn to stand up, and how does the environment accept women in management, on boards, and without having to make regulations. I really hope that it happens. So thank you so much, and I hope you guys have a lovely day, and thank you so much to our audience for joining us, and we look forward to connecting with you on LinkedIn. You can follow us there. We're always doing interesting, fun things here at ZeroNorth. So thanks again, ladies.
Thank you, Lora.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.